Good, no.
Broke it. It was like this one. There we go. There you go.
Yeah, that. Seizures.
Must have pushed the button so many times.
Okay.
You wanna stop the
Okay.
recording?
Well, that's what I was looking at doing. Think so. Okay, I'd like to open up the North Hero Select Board meeting for May 19th, 2025 at 5:15 PM. Call the meeting to order. Are there additions or deletions to the agenda? Corinne, you had,
Yes, I have had 3 liquor license applications come in that I would like to request adding to the control board.
I'll make a motion to include the 3 additional liquor license applications.
do I have a second?
Second.
Joe seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Is everybody taking a look at the warrant?
Mhm.
Any questions? We'll entertain a motion here to approve the warrant.
I'll make the motion that we approve the warrant
I'll,
as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Harry seconds it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have in front of us our budget status report. Thank you, Lisa, for putting that together. Are there any questions, any discussion on the budget status?
Nope.
Going down quickly through it there, we see there that we're over in some, we're under in some, but all in all, it looks good. Okay, and then we have our financial snapshot. Any questions or discussion on the financial snapshots? Okay. This point in time there, it's for public comment. This is in order to take up any other additional information or discussion there at future select boards. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Fire station and garage project. So this is the approval of the Krebs and Lansing agreement for professional consulting services. So it is the number. So they're proposing a lump sum fee of $14,290. And then there is the town garage topographic survey and base plan, which is, they're estimating at $2,560. It comes to a total of $16,850. Do I have a motion there to accept the Krebs and Lansing proposal?
I'll make a motion that we accept the Krebs and Lansing Consultant Engineers proposal for $16,850.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Barry seconds. Discussion.
I would like to add to next our next meeting's agenda, that we discuss the project in total for the fire station and the garage. And we can, as a board, look at the renderings that have been submitted. Talk about timing and costs.
Yep, and what we'll do is we'll invite Don Stewart to our next meeting, and um, he has laid out his initial timeline. He is still working, and he had told me there that he would have that at our next meeting. Much better idea as to the total cost.
This is at your next meeting.
No, at the next select board meeting, at our next one, so that you will have a much better idea there as far as the total cost. He's figured out some ways there to reduce the burden here a bit, so. Okay. So we have a motion on the table. All those in favor of accepting the Krebs and Lansing agreement for professional consulting services, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Public Works.
Just give you a brief update. We patched up some various water line hole, you would, you know, will be in one of them, and actually all of them except for Abenaki, specifically for that one. We've done a tree at South End Road, cemetery for a new fence that cemetery commission is installing, so that's down, it's picked up. They ground the stump on that. And Northwest Consolidated wants to take some of the blocks that are in inventory at the landfill and make a bunker for tires. So I'm supposed to get together with him at some point in time to go over his ideas and where he wants it placed.
Who was this?
The Northwest Solid Waste District.
Gotcha, thank you. I thought you said something else, I'm sure.
And I met with Cliff Jenkins for the 2025 grants and aids for our ditching projects. Showed a couple areas I had concern with, and he's took pictures and did their part. Just a matter of resubmitting it, make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, resubmitting it back to the state before we get the approval for construction.
Okay,
I would just like to say, you did a great job on Bridge Road and in the village with the patching. I hit those, I hit those every day, twice a day, and, it's a much smoother path now.
We did that, we did this one down here in Route 2, we did the one on the South End Road.
Yeah.
Said there's one left at the address.
Yeah.
Which hopefully intentionally this week, if the weather comes cooperates. And also, we'd like to get some gravel put on Sunset View Road, hopefully this week also. Right. Along keeping up with the lawn mowing that's started now.
Mm.
That's
Wet lawn mowing.
Yeah. So I guess that's where we stand with most everything right this point. I have gotten a blacktop quote for some work on South End Road. I'll get a few more before I present them to everybody here.
okay,
Did get one for the library. And I'll make sure to get a couple more for them also. I haven't presented that to them yet. I'll get some more before I submit it to those. And
okay. And I'd just like to reiterate that with any luck there, they are not planning on putting in additional stuff there that has to be torn out. You know, as far as if that gets paid,
yeah, as far as I know, the addition that they were talking about, it's got scrap.
it's a shed deal.
Yeah, but they were going to sell a shed here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm sure that I'll find the daily.
Okay. All right, thanks. Is that it, Tracy?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Lisa, treasurer, schedule fiscal year 24-25 audit.
Yeah, we're approaching the end of the fiscal year, and I'd like to get on Chad's schedule. So, approval to hire Sullivan and Powers to do the fiscal 25 audit.
I'll make a motion that we hire Sullivan Powers to perform the 24-25 audit.
Do I have a second? Joe seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Lisa, once again, delinquent tax collector.
We have the fourth installment of the fiscal year 25 tax payments, and we can start the delinquent tax sale process for those delinquent from 24.
Those are the three of them.
The three, so David St. Hilaire only owes $600. He's on a payment plan, but he's missed the last two. But the LCT doesn't recommend going for a tax sale for somebody less than $1,000 just because of the expense. But I was hoping to have a payment in the box today, if that wasn't there.
Okay.
It's been paying $1,000 and that would take care of 24.
Until the end of the day tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then the other two, I've had no response from.
okay. All right. Thank you for that update.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. We don't wanna. I mean, to respond to your. Your. Maybe request for some guidance about VLCT. Not. Well, maybe asking us to question whether we wanna commence a tax sale for a $600 payment. Or a $600 balance.
He's on the list every year. And usually comes through, and maybe the letter from the lawyer. Maybe all it needs and it wouldn't get that.
Okay. Well,
It's kind of a.
I trust your judgment. I mean. I don't think that, I mean, if he's if he's gonna be, we're in the situation anyway, then hopefully he clears it up soon. Yeah, let it from, move in the right direction.
All right. Go on to the sale of Station Road property. Review the warranty deed for transfer of Station Road property to James and Roberta O'Neill. Everyone taking a look at that? This encompasses the, excuse me, this encompasses along with the right of way that the town carries.
And the kind of the substantive part when we talk about reserving the rights back to the town starts on the bottom of the first page. We reserve for ourselves easement and right of way to enter the lands and premises for the purpose of installing, maintaining, repairing, upgrading, etc. Everything that's identified on the plat that we've already been presented with, that will be recorded along with the closing documents. And there are restrictions against digging, developing, constructing, or engaging in any activity that might damage or interfere with the water line infrastructure. Can't do anything in that area that might harm the system, and if those activities occur and the system is harmed, then they've got to repair it, whether that's O'Neill or his successors in interest if he sells the property. So I think it adequately sets forth the easement that we need to reserve as it was born in the vote. That's not legal advice. coming from an attorney to the town. That was my personal opinion as a select board because I do not represent the municipality.
Okay,
But I've reviewed it and I think it does a pretty good job.
all right. Any other discussion on this? I'll entertain a motion there to have me sign the warranty deed there to James and Roberto O'Neill.
I'll make such a motion.
Harry makes a motion,
I'll second.
Tim seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Motion carries. And I can come on in tomorrow there for an
I'm under the impression that there will be an actual closing.
actual closing.
So
Okay, let me know.
I'll confirm though and let you know what the
Yep.
process is.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
We are
Okay.
back and forth with Gail a lot.
Yeah,
So if, as a matter of convenience, the document needs to be delivered to them. To be held in escrow pending closing.
so if he could sign, I could notarize it and then you could transfer or that type
We
of
can
thing.
get it over to Gail's offices and once they have confirmation of good funds. We can trade, we can just,
Mm,
we can grab a check and we can get it up here to. I'm happy to help facilitate
Okay,
that stuff if it is convenient for everybody.
thank you.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Okay. Let me know when you're all caught up there. Yeah.
I am.
Okay. Liquor control, yeah, liquor control board. So I think that you all received the email.
We have the motion to recess the select board meeting first.
Yeah, I'll make
Well-
a motion to recess the select board meeting and enter liquor control at approximately 5:31.
Second.
Tim seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right,
Thank you.
we are now on the liquor control board. So this is to discuss these special events, caterers, special venues, festivals, educational sampling, liquor license applications. We all received an email from Corinne, laid out by VLCT, regarding the proper procedure. Corinne and I and Lisa actually had a discussion on this. So we need to basically come up with some good parameters here. And that this is really according to VLCT, this is the sole responsibility of the select board and not the town clerk. So I'll lead off by saying there that people need to have we meet the first and third Mondays of the month. And that they would need to get their licenses in timely fashion so that we can act on those there as a board. Anything else that anybody wants to add to that?
Kind of prevents any pop-ups, any spontaneous events.
Correct. Yeah. Brian, you said you do approximately 20 of those a year.
I mean, they're a little all over the place in catering. I mean, that's a little, but most of them are special event.
Yeah. So these are pretty much planned events.
Yep.
How often do you have sufficient lead time?
I think what we need to do is send an email to, like, maybe go back 3 or 4 years and the people who pretty regularly are submitting them, send them an email, let them know that this process is changing. And that they need to plan around select board meetings. As far as how often, and I think we just move from there. I mean, it's I think The people who are used to getting liquor license from North Hero know North Hero's system and they work around that. So they know it takes about a week, so there will be an adjustment period.
Mm,
Do you have any concerns?
I mean, Claire's right, if people don't plan ahead.
We either have to convene a special meeting for the specific purpose of approving a special event permit. Or we're going to ask them to plan ahead next time.
And this is a perennial thing. We've held special meetings for people getting their annual licenses because of change in personnel or change in owners, or, you know, there are people that learn the process. The state doesn't make it easy. I had a conversation with the owner of Bravo Zulu. They had had a visit on site and they had gotten conflicting information, and the state said, well, call your town clerk and see how they do it there. And I can kind of see that with 251 towns, and I know we're not the only town where the town clerk is approving these. I'd say it's probably 50-50, just like a wild guess from what I'm talking to other people in Unionet, which is probably why the state is saying, you know, they probably know it shouldn't be happening and they know it's easier for businesses, so they're like, just call them. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it.
Well, as the executive assistant to the select board,
Oh, my point is these businesses aren't getting clear guidance.
Hmm.
So in North Hero, I can make sure there's
Mhm.
clear guidance. You know, we can put a page on the website. If they reach out to me, I can just say, this is what it is. The people who do business here year round, they should be able to adjust. It's
Mhm.
how you do business. But you know, it's the special events like,
caterer.
yeah, like Ducks Unlimited, you know, you have to get it in advance and then you have to get it to the state, and then the state caterer permits are different. The state also requires them 5 days in advance of the permit of the event. So it's like it has to get to us in time for the select board meeting, and then you approve it, and then I have to have the time to go into the portal and approve it. And then the state goes in and approves it, and then they won't actually approve it till they have the fee. And then if you're a caterer, it has to be 5 days before the event. And if you're a business owner navigating these layers, I mean, it's doable, but then you end up with the state saying, call your town clerk, and the town clerk saying, call your state, and then, and then I'm
Who-
going, talk to the select board. But
Who's
it's,
the enforcement authority?
you know,
Is
I
it the
don't
state or
know.
is it us?
Oh, it's the state. It's absolutely not us. No. This
The
is
state will try to pin it on us, but,
Right.
This is, I don't know that they would. They want this process to be taken seriously. We've never quite understood our role here. I remember when Claire started and she questioned it, and we had that gentleman from the Vermont Department of Liquor come to a meeting. And we peppered him with questions, and I don't remember us leaving with a solid sense of, okay, this is how we review applications and this is our job.
Mhm.
I don't know if you all remember that, but it was.
I remember vaguely.
I mean, the way I look at the liquor control board is a way to look at applications that may otherwise be approved by the state, but may conflict with our town plan or our, development practices. Do you want to bar within X number of feet of,
Elementary
an
school.
elementary school? Or, do you or do you not want to have adult use cannabis permitted in your municipality? It's kind of those things. But I think if we were going to be refusing an otherwise permissible application, we would have to have good reason. Because I'm certain that the BCA can be appealed just like the DRB.
The liquor control board,
Yes, the liquor control board.
interesting, yeah.
I mean, that would be the way I would look at the role of the liquor control board, but. I suppose we will implement these new policies, and as long as we get notice out to people who are perennial applicants, see how things go.
So realistically, Corinne, is an applicant going to have to wait about a month?
No, I mean. Now that when I started, the process was all paper and we were physically mailing things. And now they have an online portal And an applicant can submit through the online portal, so. I don't know if the state's reviewing it on their end before it gets to me, but. I would think it would come through instantly, and then. So it would depend on how long it is to the next select board meeting, and then the select board approves it, and then it's how long before I get into the queue and approve it. Which ideally would be the next morning, but. That doesn't always practical.
But if we're holding it, if we're
Yeah.
doing it on the third, the first and the third select board meetings to approve it.
So, I mean, it depends. So if somebody gets it in on a Friday and we approve it on a Monday and their event is that Thursday, they're gonna be in the same timeline process of what we are now. But, sometimes it's 3 weeks in between meetings if it's, one of those
Mhm.
5-week months in between the third and the first. And so,
I understood incorrectly. You were mentioning 5 days before it gets processed, 5 days before.
that's just for caterer permit,
It's just what?
for a caterer's permit.
Oh,
Yeah, each one's a little different. It doesn't make it, so, yeah. And that's not really our concern, that's for the applicant to know when they're dealing with the state.
mhm.
So it's the type of, I did a little bit of looking at how other towns who are processing only through their select board, how they are trying to transmit their information, and I think it's Morristown. I really liked their webpage, and I figured I would pretty much borrow from that. And they had that information on there about the caterer's license. It's just like, this is another step to put into your planning,
Mhm.
but that's not that's the applicant's responsibility. That's a state
Mm.
requirement. We would just be helpful to give them a heads up, but
So we could add a page then and to the website. And then just refer
yeah, I think
people
we
to
can
that.
do what we can to make it,
Yep.
the transition smooth. But,
Absolutely. Yeah,
um,
but transition has to happen, so people are gonna have to understand. As long as we can spell it out for them, it shouldn't be that much of a problem.
Okay. Any further discussion on that matter?
no, the next thing under liquor control board are the applications that came in
Yeah,
over the weekend.
okay,
So first is, the North Hero Pier, and this is for the pier. And it's a first-class restaurant bar license. They've already come before us, and I think what's happening, the state seems to be visiting and updating practices because everybody's submitted a little differently than they have in the past, and I think they want the pier to have the first, third, and outside, just like the restaurant does. And so I think they just missed that their first go around.
okay, so the last meeting there, we had approved it for,
You approve the outside in the third class and the first class. I think they have a new manager. She just missed it.
okay,
And it's also the first time the state's made them get licenses for each operation. They did the same thing for Shore Acres. It took them a couple tries to get it all right too.
They're planning to open on Friday.
Yeah, so if they hadn't gotten it in, they would not be able to open.
Mm.
So, but yeah, they got it in.
okay. All right, oh, he has been paid. All right, well, entertain no motion there to,
Make a motion that we approve the first-class restaurant bar license for North Hero Pier LLC.
Second.
Joe seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next one on the list then, Corinne.
So these are from Kramer and Ken. It is a outside consumption permit and a first-class restaurant bar license.
It says here that this is for 3517 US Route 2, so that would be the rental of, I have a question on this one, and I'll just throw this out because they are in front of the, even though the DRB has closed the final on granting conditional use permit. I mean, they can't, how does this go? If we grant this, are they, I mean, as far as I know,
Email from,
yeah, if you read that,
sure. So I had asked. Just context. Actually. My computer's decided to minimize that, and I guess that's it. I know that was a very long conversation. Um, is there a recommended review process to review potential liability? Say. Yeah, I think our question was mainly about liability. But knowing the context, I said, should we be reviewing DRB decisions to ensure they meet? And his response was, we don't have best practices for approving liquor licenses, but I recommend talking to the appropriate staff of the Vermont Department of Liquor and Lottery. I'm not sure how the DRB comes into play here, as they have no authority in the liquor control context. They can only rule on zoning applications which are entirely independent of an establishment's liquor licensing. Example, an establishment might need to DRB approval for their development, but they would then need to apply separately for a liquor control license. And the DRB could not condone their approval or issuance on that license. So he's saying these are separate.
well, they're separate, but. So I guess the chain would. If they're granted a license to serve, and yet they do not have their conditional use permit, and yet they decide to serve. Then they would be in violation.
Their conditional use permit.
I have no idea. I would think we'd want to contact the zoning administrator. I mean, because he's specifically saying the DRB could not condition their approval on issuance of a license. So this is either a liquor control violation and we're contacting the state. Or this is a DRB condition violation and we're contacting our zoning administrator to enforce it.
Did you mention, Carl, that the DRB issued their final? So
Not sure if they closed it, they
They
closed,
closed it?
they closed the meeting, yeah.
Probably waiting to make a
And
decision.
And there's 45 days,
Danielle anticipates that coming out Wednesday.
coming on Wednesday.
If we did a conditional approval, I mean, what if we voted to approve this, provided that the DRB approval is issued after the end of deliberation?
And the DRB approval would allow the sale of liquor.
Well, the DRB approval would allow them to facilitate a
business.
restaurant, to operate the business, and then presuming they get that approval from the DRB, they would have our conditional approval for the sale of liquor.
Yeah, so I
that-
would just hold off going in the portal and hitting yes until
Right.
that decision comes through.
And
Do you want to assign a select board member to look that over with me, or? I mean, just to make, I mean, who knows what the DRB decision, how it will read, and if it's.
but again, I kind of understand their point. They're separate and distinct. You could have a liquor license to sell liquor in advance of closing on, a restaurant that you're buying. You could have all your ducks in a row. And then the closing could fall through. And you've got a liquor license to sell liquor at that place, but because you're not conducting that business, you're not availing yourself of the permit. And vice
Right.
versa, you could buy the restaurant and not have your ducks in a row. And begin to operate the restaurant and not be able to sell liquor until you get your liquor license. So, I mean. They're codependent, but they are separate in terms of the permitting. I mean, I for one would be inclined to. Approve it conditionally, and as soon as we see the final permit from the DRB. We submit the yes, just so that we can operate efficiently and they can operate efficiently if they get the nod.
Can we approve it contingent on approval of the DRB?
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. I think we make a motion to approve it, provided that the DRB approval is final DRB approval is issued.
Do they still have to wait 45 days?
Any DRB be appealed for a period of 45 days, I believe. So even if the DRB does issue a final permit approval, someone could appeal the DRB's decision up to the environmental court.
So they could,
But it's valid once
But
they've approved it.
It's a valid
It may be
permit.
reversed.
Sure.
Yeah.
okay, so they could start selling beer or whatever.
I mean, as soon as they get their approval, presumably they can begin conducting the business that they are approved to do. And if someone files an appeal during that appeal period, the question would be whether or not an injunction would also issue that would prevent them from doing business during the appeal period. And I think that would be a separate question. That would be a question of law. That would need to be taken up by a court of competent jurisdiction, and that's way above where we are. I mean, I think if the liquor control board approves of them conducting, selling beer and operating under the outside consumption and first-class restaurant license. If we feel that that's a good decision for this board, I think we should make it today. And then they will follow the kind of separate track of this venture with the DRB and any potential appeals and wherever that goes.
And that an appeal, that's interesting. That's a
Yeah,
Wrinkle.
it is.
Yeah.
Well. I guess my question is there, do we,
Well,
as far as I know there, that. If you're serving alcohol, of course, you have to serve food, so therefore hence we have the two permits. Do we look into whether or not? Because I believe fire safety may have to take a look at that. So
Sure, but I don't think we're in charge of
we're not. in
confirming
charge
that
of
they are compliant with fire
Right.
safety code. That's the state of Vermont as well. I
Okay.
mean, that's the fire marshal who's gonna do a final CO and fire safety check before they're allowed to have customers in the building.
And if they start serving before they should, that would again be a mistake.
That would be a fire safety violation, and then they could get shut down by the fire marshal until they get the fire safety stuff sorted out. But I don't think it would circle back to us from a liquor control perspective.
Okay,
well, if we've approved it contingent upon DRB approval. If that approval gets rescinded, not, gone through, then the liquor license doesn't go through.
Right, and the DRB may have conditions like we're approving it, but you've got to do these few things and they've got to meet those conditions. So it's.
So it's gonna be subject to their approval.
Yes.
And any amendments to the approval.
Right,
Yeah. And if that should get suspended, they don't have approval anymore, so
right.
they don't have it, yeah.
Are they?
But I
leasing?
think this is why the lawyer is saying the two aren't connected, because you don't want somebody in the town that has to be staffed with monitoring of business use in relation to liquor licensing.
right,
I mean, like Shore Acres is only allowed to have 15 events a year. But, does the liquor control board want to get into monitoring the number of events and keeping track of them for when they're issuing licenses? Like,
well, I
that's a
think that'll be
business
monitored there by
responsibility.
neighbors.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Like,
Oh,
so-
Which is what might happen here.
And maybe we should, I don't know, we're learning a lot here, but.
No, I don't think we should.
So if we start
I
saying you
think-
can't do this until your conditions are met, that's kind of the same. Well,
Well, they can't do anything really until they get the approval from the DRB, period,
Mm-hmm.
which they don't have yet.
I believe they do have it.
I don't know. I know I asked her when when it would be issued, like, are they gonna
Oh.
take the full 45 days? And her hope was Wednesday.
And this
Yeah.
is, the DRB did not indicate whether or not the conditional use was approved, or they said it was.
They will not until it comes out, because who knows how they would, okay.
I didn't know.
It's not in the minutes or anything.
Mm-mm.
No. Okay.
Well, so
But what the DRB is looking at is it residential? Is it gonna affect the neighbors? Is the lighting gonna affect the neighbors? Give me some of the other things that we've looked at before. Karan.
Cooking, circulation,
Are they gonna put an
Yeah.
outside bar within 25 feet of the property line?
music.
You know, Music, is it gonna be too loud for residential? What's the decibel level?
Well, so from a liquor control board. Really, then we don't need to take any of that because. If they don't get their permits and they start serving there, they're gonna be hit with hefty fines
Mhm.
anyway,
If they don't get
or
their
shut down.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get
So-
their permits from the DRB and they start operating the business, they're gonna get an NOV from the town.
Right.
We are gonna be involved.
Right.
Because they shouldn't be operating the business there anyway. But if they do get their permit approval, and if they have this ready to go, then we don't need to take the issue up again. And anything that they've got to do to satisfy the fire marshal, they will do that. So,
Are they gonna have to go through the state for septic approval for the amount of people? do they have outdoor?
I think like most of the buildings here in the village, every building has got a gallon per day allocation.
Mhm.
And so instead of getting approval, they just have a limit on the number of tables or guests they can serve inside.
Yeah.
They say, based on what you have for allocation, this is what you can do.
Well, at the DRB meeting there, it was determined there are 16 seats inside. And regardless, it doesn't matter how many are outside.
Right.
So it could be 2, it could be 50, it could be 100.
Does that?
They do
change
have that in
the
here.
approved?
Wow. So in here, of course, you have to delineate, which is done at these other events too. So the outdoor consumption will include the green space of the property, which is approximately 1/4 acre surrounding the old farmhouse / tap room space. The outdoor space will be fully fenced in to provide a clear barrier to our patrons. The fencing will consist of cedar posts and 2-inch rope.
Are they leasing the property or buying?
They're leasing it, I believe. I think that's why at the DRB meeting, Nathaniel had to be here too. So they're leasing it, renting it, whatever it may be. I'm not sure what their agreement is, but so. Okay, well then, if it doesn't really matter whether or not they get their conditional use or not. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the first class restaurant bar license and the outside consumption permit for Kramer and Kin LLC, provided that their DRB permit to operate at, where's the address on
3517.
3517 US Route 2 is approved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
No seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Motion carries.
We'll make a motion to adjourn the liquor control board meeting at 5:58 PM and resume the select board meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Claire seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we have adjourned there at 5:58 PM. And
We don't have any correspondence in our packet, do we?
No,
nope,
Well, then I
No.
will make a motion to adjourn our select board meeting at 5:58 PM.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Anybody want discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, motion carries. We are now adjourned. And I will end, I guess,
I think I have to do it. I too.
oh, you have to do it, because I just see have leave here. That's a hint.